Is everybody on your team just a little bit hissy? It seems like they got up on the wrong side of the bed. You're not sure they want to come to work. You're not sure they want to work for you, and you can't figure out what's going on. Spoiler alert, there is a morale issue on your team. I'm Melissa Franks. I'm your host of the Opt-in podcast, Where You Are. And today, we are talking about 6 of the reasons that there may be low morale on your team. And this one just makes me giggle a little bit because I got on a soapbox about this about a week ago, literally because I overheard a conversation in the kitchen at the office with 4 people who were fully in suits. Like, they were around the smallest table possible. Like, everybody's knees were hitting each other. They were in an open space where everybody could hear them. And it so happens that it's like literally right outside my office door. And as I was walking to my office, I hear them talking about a pizza party. And this might be a little bit inside baseball, but if you were ever in a sorority and you could no longer eat sheet cake because that was the solution to celebrate everything, then you understand what I'm about to say. The pizza party to the corporation is like the sheet cake to a sorority. It is an easy, cheap answer to a really, really important and complicated situation. You see, they wanted to throw a pizza party because everybody was seeming like they were a little bit burnt out. Everybody was seeming a little bit frustrated, and they were worried they couldn't make it all the way through the next 2 months to wrap up year end with quality. And as I was listening, because I literally stopped dead in my tracks, they couldn't see me. I actually hadn't physically seen them yet. And I'm listening to that conversation. I'm like, they can't be serious. Like, I'm getting punked. Right? Is Ashton Kutcher gonna jump out from behind a wall somewhere? I'm being punked, right? And no, they were incredibly serious, and I don't know them, so I didn't then walk up and say, hey guys, knock, knock. I'm really proud of you that you are identifying that there's a problem and you just picked like the worst possible solution. I didn't do that. Maybe I should have. But I didn't because I didn't know them and they don't know me, and they're just some crazy lady walking down a hall. But y'all know me. And if you don't, and this is your first time here, buckle up, Buttercup, because this is where you get some tough love from me. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons that morale is low. Now, I want to preface this just with a headline here. The world right now, and whenever you listen to this, because I am now certain beyond anything else that this statement will be true until the day that I die. But the world right now is incredibly heavy. Incredibly. And interactions with humans in your life, whether it's through the internet or in person, are incredibly stressful and divisive. People are on edge. And so what may be happening in your business literally may have nothing to do with you. So before we go into like what you might be able to suss out and how to solve it, I want to start with this. When you identify that one or more people on your team is frustrated, has a negative attitude, is dragging their feet to come into work, is showing up late, is leaving early, the quality of their output is starting to suffer. When any of those things happen, the very first thing that you do before you listen to any more of this podcast, are you ready? You talk to them. You sit them down in a private, one-on-one space where they have enough room to breathe, and you have it scheduled at a point in your schedule where you have enough stamina to actually listen. And you ask them what's going on. You share what you've observed, that they're coming in late or leaving early, or the quality has declined of their work product, or they're snapping at everybody that comes across their path, and it's just not like them. You share what you have observed and you ask them, is there anything going on? Anything you want to talk about? And then you shut up. You literally stop talking and you wait. And you wait. And you wait in uncomfortable silence, because sooner or later that person sitting across from you they're going to tell you something. And what they may tell you is one of these 6 things I cover. What they may tell you is another 25 that I don't have time to cover in this podcast. What they may tell you is that they're really struggling because they have different political views from their family. Or they may tell you that they're really struggling because a family member was just diagnosed with a terminal illness. They tell you that they're really struggling because their kid is struggling in school. You don't know what they're going to tell you. So stop making up the narrative. Stop saying and stop labeling there's a problem within your business and your organization until they tell you. The worst thing that you can do as a leader is make an assumption and then go about trying to solve these 6 things that I list for you, or another 25 that we're not going to talk about today, when the whole problem, the whole situation in front of you actually had nothing to do with you, and it had to do with something that you cannot control. So with that said, when you've talked to all of the people and you've collected all of the information and they've either been hedgy or not giving you an answer, and it's not the heavy world outside and it's not people with family issues. There's nothing going on outside the 4 walls. It's something inside the 4 walls. Then you know you have a problem, and you, the leader, you, the owner, you, the CEO, fill in the blank. That doesn't work for you. You have to solve it. So we're going to talk today about the 6 top reasons that there is low morale in a company, in a business unit, in a department, in a team, and what you can do to improve it. Now, one more heavy disclaimer, because this is a favorite inside of corporate, is do not invite your team to fix it themselves. Never have I ever, we're not playing that game today, never have I ever seen a team fix itself from the bottom up. I've never seen a business fix itself from the bottom up. I have never seen a grassroots movement by employees turn the ship around. And why? Because culture starts at the top. Because everybody organizationally takes cues from their leaders. No matter how big of a dissenting population you have, no matter how big the wave of change is going to be, until leadership gets on board, until it is messaged and demonstrated and adopted from the top, those at the bottom will fail. So before you think that you're cute and you invite them at the bottom to solve it, I want to tell you right now, it doesn't work. It does not work. I have tried it and tried it and tried it. And the one thing that I know with absolute certainty is that the definition of insanity is trying to change the culture of a company from the bottom up. Full stop. Okay, I'm off my soapbox. Now we're going to talk about actual tactics for things for you to do to fix morale in your organization. First up is you've got a poor performer on your team and you're not doing anything about it. So this one is tricky because you hire everybody with the best of intentions. You do diligence and you do interviews and check references, and sometimes you get somebody in and they're not the right fit. Sometimes you get somebody in and they said they were going to work really hard and they're just not. Sometimes you're going to get somebody in and they're just not qualified for the job, even though they said they were. It just is. This is the nature of hiring humans, right? That's okay. The thing is that you as a leader have a couple of responsibilities to that employee that's not performing well and the rest of the organization. Your first and foremost responsibility is to address it. Now, HR and employment laws being what they are, you can't go to your team and say, hey guys, I see it. I know Sally is doing a crap job. I get it. I'm working on it. That you can't say. What you can say to the entire team at large for where Sally is present is, hey, the quality of the work that our department has been putting out has started to suffer. Or, hey, we're missing more deadlines than normal. Or, hey, literally say the elephant in the room. Introduce yourself to it. Invite it in. Make sure that everybody is comfortable and knows that you see what is going on without calling anybody out, without placing any blame. Just here's the current situation that we're in. And you know what, guys? I'm going to roll up my sleeves with all y'all and I'm going to figure out how to fix it. We're in this together. You get on their side of the table. And then what you do privately, following all of the rules and policies that are laid out for your company and based off of the advice from employment lawyers and HR, is you sit down with the one specific individual that is struggling. And you do just exactly what I said earlier. You have a real conversation with them. Here are the things that I'm observing. What's going on? Now, if this is somebody that's come into your organization has never performed well, it's pretty black and white. You said at your interview that you were able to do this. This is what we're seeing. What's the deal, right? If it's somebody that's been with you for a long time and was a good performer and then they took a backward slide, having that conversation and understanding what's going on and getting context is going to be really helpful for you. In the end, regardless of how it comes out, what you're going to do is you're going to establish an action plan, how to turn the ship around. And it's going to be time-bound, and it's going to be specific, and it's going to be measurable. And here's the kicker. The poor performer is going to come up with it, not you. Because if you come up with it and give it to them, do you think it's going to get done? No. So they're going to come up with a plan. And then you're going to give them a little bit of rope to get it done. And what the team at large is going to see is that you're more involved in the day-to-day task management and projects that are going on, and you're checking in with people, and your boots are on the ground. You're actually in the conversation significantly more than you had ever been before. They're going to see your presence and feel your presence, and that alone is going to communicate to them, I told you that I saw the challenge, and I'm working on it. Now, maybe the performer steps up, problem solved. Maybe the performer doesn't step up and you have to replace them. Either way, what you have done is taken decisive action to solve the problem. You have been a leader. You have been clear. You have demonstrated that you will invest in the team and will make hard decisions for the greater good. If morale is low because of a poor performer, it's because you're refusing to take action. It's because you're being an ostrich and burying your head in the sand. And you know what's going to happen in that case? The best performers are going to leave. The best performers are going to go find a job down the street because the best performers don't have to stay with the worst performers. They just don't. The second cause of low morale in your team is that there's nowhere to go. There is no growth opportunities. They are not getting developed. See, the thing is with humans in general is that if they don't use their brains start to atrophy. It's why the elderly are advised to play Sudoku and do crossword puzzles and play memory games. It's to continue to work the muscle because that's what your brain is, to keep it sharp. And just like those tactics used for those that are in retirement and living their best life, those that work for us also need to be challenged and taught and provided feedback and given an opportunity to grow and develop. Now, I get it. If you're a small business owner, there's not a lot of room unless the business absolutely explodes for you to promote people up and give them more money. But what you can do is you can invest in them. What you can do is you can invite them to grow with the business. And so by paying for a year-long membership somewhere, or paying for some technical skills for them, or giving them the opportunity to have a little bit more responsibility, by doing any of those things, you reignite their fire. You reignite their investment in the business. You reignite their passion and their excitement to work for and with you. And by acquiring new skills, they're going to bring that back to your business. It's going to make your business better because they are better. You know, I was talking to somebody not that long ago. We were walking on the street in New York City and talking about the kids. And she said something that was really interesting. And she said, you know, I'm not the same parent that I was 5 years ago when I had my first baby. And it really got me thinking because I've had kids for 15 years. And the mom that I was at 30 to that newborn is absolutely not the mom that those 3 kids have now in the very best way, because I continue to grow and evolve. And to be honest, that woman in her 30s could not deal with the parenting of now. And so the beauty of parenting is that you, the adult, get to grow with the child. And you get to show up as that new up-leveled parental self of yours at each distinct milestone. And I've got to say that I had like my training wheels on with the first one. The third one got the benefit of me being that evolved mom over 7 years before he showed up. It was 5, not 7. Can't do math. But in any event, that's the same thing that's going on in your business. The person that you hire has this untapped opportunity, and all you need to do is put a little bit of money and a little bit of effort and give them a little bit of time to excel. So even if you're a small business that doesn't have this huge budget and all of this opportunity, what you do have is flexibility. What you do have is the ability to create new and unique job descriptions and allow them to acquire skills and find their innate genius that maybe they don't even know that they have yet. People get incredibly frustrated. Morale dips down in the team. They get negative and they lack productivity when they feel like there's no other option, where there is limits, where they can't grow, where they can't excel, where they're not getting any better. This one is so easy to solve. Just give them choice. Offer them another way. The third one, boy, howdy. This one is going to come right back to you. The third one is the workplace is toxic. And this happens everywhere. It happens in massive corporations and it happens in small businesses. And why it happens is always different. But once it's there, literally, you have to chop the head off the beast. Now, do I mean that you need to sell your company, that you need to fire yourself? No, I don't mean that. But what I do mean is that when a culture ends up toxic, it's because you allowed it. Yeah, that's what I said. I didn't stutter. You allowed it. You may have even fostered it. Here's what I mean. Many, many years ago, I was working with an early stage startup. It's a bunch of dudes. They had all gone to college together and they were living their best life. They were like all living in a house together, like super poor. They were working together and they were taking this dream that they had and bringing it into fruition. And then they got a little bit of seed money and they needed to hire help. And shockingly, they hired a woman. I still don't exactly understand how they got there because I came in later. But by the time I got there, they had hired 2 or 3 other people. So they had this one woman that they had hired, and then they hired a few more people. So it was a bunch of dudes and one woman. And I was with them for 10 minutes, and I'm like, this is bad. Because what had happened was the 4 guys who were familiar with each other and almost like brothers, they had this teasing nature about them that was not mean-spirited, at least from what I could tell, but it was brutal and sarcastic and biting, and they were crazy smart. So like some of the stuff that they would say, you knew that it was like that burns, but you didn't actually understand what they were saying. And the 3 people that were working there that were not a part of that were on edge. You see, what had ended up happening was this teasing everybody amongst the bros turned into that's how they managed. So if you didn't do something the way that they wanted you to, or they made a mistake or like whatever, it was like this biting retort where they expected them to go back and forth, like intellectually, and then laugh it off because that's what they did with each other. But what they didn't realize is that made everybody really uncomfortable. They were worried that they were going to be publicly shamed. They were worried they were going to be publicly called out. Like they were literally on edge, like just like could not function. By the time I got there and I had come in, like because a VC was looking at them, I knew that what they had was phenomenal. Their technology platform, their business model, like all the stuff was really, really good. And they were a liability. So I went back to the VC and I said, hey, listen, if you have a way to buy their IP and get them out, you're going to make millions. But if you decide to partner with these guys, you're either going to need to get them like a lobotomy or you're going to lose all your money. And the reason for that was because they were propagating a toxic culture. They didn't even realize it. And when I attempted to talk to them about it, they thought I was overreacting. I was the old lady and I didn't know what I was talking about. And I needed to get cool. I needed to chill. Literally, these are things they were saying to me. And this is what happens in small business, especially if you start collecting people that are familiar to you to work for you. And so one of the reasons that I advise every small business owner that I know to not hire friends and family. because you have these innate interaction models with people you're familiar with. And when you bring in strangers to the mix, it causes a whole bunch of strife. Not only that, most of the time, the friends and family aren't even qualified to do the thing that you want them to do. You just want to throw them a job because they've supported you, and it's a whole thing. Anyway, I'm getting off tangent. Back to this toxic culture situation. What I mean is that in small business specifically, your habits, your practices are what create the culture. And so if people are unhappy or they're frustrated or they're being nasty to each other, it's because you have allowed it. It's because you have done it, because you have taught them that it's acceptable. Now, it's possible to turn a culture around. And I want to tell you how I did it. And I want to encourage you to consider this too. So for those of you that work for other people and you're still here listening to this with me, I want to tell you something. When I did this, I was a chief operating officer and I worked inside of a massive corporation. The toxicity was coming from my boss, the CEO, and nobody was doing anything about it. And so when I got in front of this team that I had just inherited from all over the place, and I was watching how they were working together, and it was horrible, I kind of had two choices to make because I was in a big corporation and I had a good amount of authority. I could fire them all, which I kind of considered a lot, or I could do the more difficult thing and attempt to change the culture. And I knew that I wasn't going to get any help from above because, man, it was horrible. And I knew that I had a great team and they just need to be shown a better way. So what I did, and this is what I would encourage any of you to do. If you have a team and you're inside of a big corporation, you can do it. If you have your own business and you're literally the leader, you can do this at any time. As soon as you see that your culture is turning toxic, stop what you're doing and do this. So I was sitting in a hotel room and I was frustrated. I had just been with them all and I had watched them just be horrible to each other. And it was in body language and word choice, and they were snarky, and it was just gross. I needed to take a shower. That's how bad it felt. I'm I cannot do this. I cannot work this way. And so I sat down and I really spent some time thinking, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to push the reset button. I'm going to push the reset button. I am going to go in there tomorrow morning, and we're going to have our meeting that we have scheduled. And I'm going to tell them what my expectations are. And I didn't know at the time what they were. I had dinner, went to bed, and I woke up and literally eyes popped open and I'm I got it. And I wrote down the 5 core values that I used to parent my children, that I used to govern my life. Literally, these are things that innately were a part of me that I used as my lens to make all of my decision making, to take all of my actions, to et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm that's it. I'm going to set expectations because I'm going to communicate what the core values are. I'm going to talk about the behaviors that demonstrate that, and then I'm going to hold them accountable to upholding the values. Sounds simple, right? So what did I do? I put together a PowerPoint presentation. I told my EA, who helped me, not be so direct in my language. Thank you, Lexi. And I marched my little butt back into that office that day, and I sat them down and I said, okay, so here's the situation. I did all of you a disservice. I didn't set expectations about how we work together. So we're going to spend the time this morning doing exactly that. And I walked them through the core values. I explained all of them to them. I explained what the behaviors were that were demonstrated. And then I explained to them how I was going to hold each of them accountable. They were going to have them in their goals and they were going to be measured against them annually. And we were establishing a recognition program to recognize 5 members of the team every month for each core value. And we were going to do it publicly and we were going to do it loud and we were going to encourage them to identify each other. We, in fact, as leaders, were not going to nominate people the team was going to nominate. And you know what happened? The culture changed. Do you know what happened? I didn't have to let anybody go. Do you know what happened? The greater team began to recognize colleagues in other departments for upholding the core values. Not only did my team put their arms around that set of expectation and core values, but it bled out to the organization as a whole. Now, I want to tell you that I said that you cannot fix a toxic culture from the bottom up, and I still firmly believe that. But what I can tell you is that I was the leader and I had a small little ecosystem I could influence. And by setting the tone and setting the expectation and setting the values, I turned the ship around. You can do that too. Number 4, morale is low because there is an uncertain future. Now, there are some entrepreneurs out there that live a life in scarcity mindset and the sky is falling. And it freaks people out. The one thing about small businesses is they are dynamic. And the one thing about small businesses is that being dynamic means they're unpredictable. So it means that you could have a 6-figure month and then a 4-figure month. It means that the thing that worked 2 weeks ago doesn't work anymore. It means that you are trying and trying and trying until you figure out that magic secret sauce of what you sell and who wants it and the price you have it for and how you fulfill. And it takes freaking time. And it can be frustrating. And it's your responsibility as the leader to cast a vision for the future. Even if you are feeling uncertain, even if you are feeling threats, even if you are not sure if this is actually going to happen, your responsibility to the people whom you pay payroll to is to inspire them with your vision, to care for them, and ensure that they understand how they are working hard for something that is possible. When you spend all of your time talking about how we're in a sales slump, or we can't generate leads, or this isn't working, or that's not working, and you invite them into the conversation to help solve problems, yet none of you can figure out how to actually solve it, all you're doing is freaking them out. All you're doing is making them feel like they need to start job hunting, that the future is uncertain, that things are shaky at best. So stop it. And here's the kicker. Like, honestly, if you're 2 weeks away from not being able to pay payroll, then tell them they are adults. That is not an uncertain future. That is a certain future. The business is going to run out of money and I'm not going to have a paycheck. What is uncertain is all this conjecture and energy looming and hanging all over everybody. You're not really sure exactly what's going to happen. That is what creates uncertainty. You can deliver bad news. You can tell them emphatically, here's the data, and the business, unless there's some magic spoon given over to us to feed us for the next month, is going to fail. You can tell them all those things, and it's okay because that's certainty. What I'm not telling you is to walk around with rose-colored glasses and tell them everything is okay. But if everything is really kind of okay, and you just, as an entrepreneur, are paranoid because, hi, you're an entrepreneur and you're paranoid, then cool, but keep it to yourself. Employees that work for you need certainty. They do their best work that way because they're not worried about what's going to happen tomorrow or next week or next month. Either way, good news, bad news. Be clear. And if you're in a good news place in your business, vision cast every day. Make sure that they can connect what they are doing to the future that you're all working towards. Number 5, they're underutilized. I know, this seems a little bit weird, right? You would think hey, if I'm not giving them enough work to do and they can knock off early, isn't that cool? No. People come to work because they want to do a good job. People come to work because they want to be recognized for what they do best. People come to work because they want to do, generally speaking, the work that they enjoy the most of. They need to earn a paycheck, therefore they'd like to be doing things that they really enjoy doing. And when you don't tap into somebody's full potential, when you are not asking more of somebody than they ask of themselves, you are underutilizing them. It is your responsibility as their manager, as their leader, as their CEO, as their fill in the blank, to identify their potential and their strengths and to ask more of them. When you overlook somebody's capabilities, when you bypass somebody and assign work to somebody else that they are capable of doing, when you downplay their gifts, when you fail to recognize what they can do and what they've achieved, you are underutilizing your team. The biggest sin of all, aside from what you're doing to the human in general, is that your company is less productive as a result. The coolest thing about having human capital is that it's ever changing and evolving and dynamic and learning new things. I know AI is sexy and we're all like, machine learning, it's cool, but listen, this has all been around since the 80s. So like, don't get your panties in a twist about this. What's really cool about humans is that they can compare patterns with logic, with emotion, with reality, and can take action from that. And you cannot get that from a machine, from an algorithm, from ChatGPT. It's just not possible. So you have an opportunity with the human capital you have to leverage it to the highest extent possible, which means identifying skills that people have that are dormant, identifying strengths that show up innately. Did you know that if you gave work to everybody on your team based on what they're absolutely the best at, that you would have the most productive team out there? Literally, there is science behind it. Go study Gallup. They have an entire assessment and model around how to staff your teams to leverage the strengths of the individuals. Stop being so focused on what they can't do and start being so focused on what they can do, and you will get them to 100% utilization. People get depressed. People get negative. People on idle hands is the devil's work. Isn't that a saying somewhere? When you underutilize them. So don't do it. Such an easy way to keep up morale on your team by making sure that everybody is valued, everybody has a full plate, everybody is contributing. That should be your number one priority with your team, shouldn't it? Okay, and then the last one, and this is like just so stinking classic business world, corporate, whatever, is there's too much work and not enough people. Too much work, not enough people. Now, there is a delicate balance, and I want to be really clear about this, that especially in small business, margin is really tight. And so you want to fill up people's plates over capacity to see where they break. That's a strategy, one that I actually encourage. Because when they cry uncle, then you can say, okay, so where are their strengths? What do they do best? What can we pull off their plate? And then how do we solve for that? Because usually it's a little bit. So usually you've over allocated them by like 20% or something. So you can't go buy 20% of a person, but what you can say is, okay, well, we could probably get somebody for 5 hours a week. We get an intern, we could do whatever, right? There's solutions for all of these things in there. What you want to do is you want to stretch them as far as you can. You want to understand what that limit is. And then you want to solve the problem. The kicker here is that high performers specifically will suffer in silence. They will keep saying yes. They will keep taking on work. They will work until the midnight oil. And it is your responsibility to be like, you're the first one in and the last one out. This is the 5th weekend in a row that I've known that you worked on the weekends. And you start asking some questions. Because the worst thing that you can do is have too much work and not enough people. Because that's when mistakes are made. That's when productivity decreases. You actually get less efficient also because you're asking your people to context switch so much that they're losing time with their brains switching tasks. So what you want to keep a keen eye on is how over allocated your team is and where you can start moving work around. What is also true is that sometimes businesses contract and sometimes sales are down and sometimes you need to let team members go or third-party contractors because they're expensive and you've got to contract yourselves a little bit to protect margin, to protect payroll, to do whatever. That's also true. And with that, what you need to do is you need to create a list of what you're not going to do. And everybody has to do it collectively. So as you let go of a team member or a shared service provider or whatever, you all have to collectively say, okay, are we okay not doing X, Y, and Z? And if the answer is we don't need to do X or Y, but we have to do Z, then you say, okay, so who's going to do Z? And then what are you going to stop doing? The worst thing that you can do is contract your team and then just expect all of the work to continue to happen. It's just not reality. Because as soon as you start asking people to do more than they're comfortable doing, or you ask them to do more than they're able to do, that's when things go sideways real fast. That's when morale dips way down. That's where people get frustrated and they start talking poorly about you and about your business. And it gets incredibly toxic really, really fast. If your team is working more than you are, that's a problem. All of that extra work that doesn't have a home should come to you first and then it gets distributed. Even if you're a boss inside of a corporation, you pick up the heavy weight. You make more than everybody else. You figure out what doesn't need to get done. You live with consequences. The worst thing that you can do is pile more work and more work and more work on your team, because what they will do is they will leave. But they won't just leave quietly. What they will do is they will suffer in silence until they can't take it anymore. And by then you've had months and months and months of poor quality, low productivity, and you'll have a mess on your hands. And these people who were once top performers and did excellent work are going to leave you with such a big mess that you don't know if you can recover from it. This one not only will kill morale in the present, it will kill it in the future too. Because sooner or later, you're going to have to ask somebody to clean up that mess. And then they are going to get as frustrated as their predecessors. And then it propagates. As soon as you realize that you are giving people too much work and the team isn't large enough, take decisive action. Reduce the work or hire more people. Those are your two choices. As I said, I could go on for a lifetime about the causes of low morale. You did not hear from me at any point tell you to throw a party, to buy holiday gifts, to give them a little bit more bonus money. People can't be bought. You have to identify why morale is so low on your team, and then you have to take real leadership action to improve it. It's on you to turn the ship around. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. I love talking about this topic. It is one of my favorites. I get super passionate about it. You see the corporate leader and we come out. It's just such a deal breaker. Your business is going to sink or swim based on the quality and caliber of people you have working for you. So if you want to talk more about this, come chat with me in the DMs, send me an email, comment on the YouTube video, however you do it. And please know that you are wise and you are strong and you are brave and you are capable. And I believe in you. Until next time.